Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Friday afternoon. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you've all had a good week and looking forward to the weekend with football back, of course. And West Ham go to Nottingham Forest, the City Ground, on Saturday to play a team that's currently in some fine form. Nottingham Forest's manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, is eagerly awaiting injury updates on one or two key players ahead of this week's game against us. The Portuguese manager obviously cannot call upon on loan midfielder James Ward-Prowse. He can't play against his parent team. And then on Thursday, he confirmed that there will be late fitness tests on at least four other players who would otherwise be expected to be in his starting lineup. The first of those is Morgan Gibb-White, the talismanic, should I say, midfielder, and of course their captain. He's a key player for the team, and if he's out, they kind of lose something a little bit in midfield. Striker Chris Wood is another player that is being assessed. Wood is the epitome of you can never be too old a striker to score goals in the Premier League. 32 years of age. He's in a rich vein of form at the moment with 7 goals so far this season, 4 of which have come in his last 3 games. If he's not deemed fit, then that would be quite a major blow to Forest and the way they set their attacking game up. Santo has praised West Ham for the win against Man United last weekend. But his team are doing rather well this season, having won 4 games, drawn 4, and lost just the one. In the games so far this season, after these games, they sit 7th in the league. Their 4 wins have come against the likes of Southampton, Crystal Palace, and Leicester. And the 4th of their wins did make people sit up and take notice when they beat Liverpool away from home 1-0. Their 4 draws have come against Bournemouth, Wolves, and Brighton, as well as Chelsea. So what has Santo brought to Nottingham Forest? Well, it's suggested that he's adopted a unique and somewhat unconventional style of football in the Premier League. But the style is not too unfamiliar to West Ham fans. I'll explain the system to you, and then you tell me whether it sounds familiar or not. Some of the key aspects of their approach includes a defensive solidity. You would expect that. It's standard for all teams. He has adopted a counter-attacking style, which is set up to absorb pressure and then swiftly transition to attack when the opportunity arises. But this is partnered with a low press. Unlike many modern teams that press high up the pitch, Nottingham Forest tend to wait longer before initiating their own press. This means that they allow the opposition to have more possession, but aim to win the ball back in more advantageous positions. And Santo is also not afraid to adopt the long ball, to bypass the opposition's midfield and defence, often targeting their front man, Chris Wood. Hence, if Wood is out, it will have quite a major impact on the way Santo sets his tactics up. Now, have you worked it out yet? Well, these were the tactics. I said they were familiar to West Ham fans. These were the tactics that were adopted by David Moyes when he returned to manage West Ham in his second tenure. Low block, sitting back, counter-attacking, and on more than one occasion, pumping the ball up, the long ball, to our front man. Now, whilst many fans hated that style of play, it seems that Santo has embraced it, and he's using these tactics in order to get the best out of the players available to him. I guess the one difference between how Santo has adopted these tactics and David Moyes is that Santo would also change and adapt his formations when it's right to do so, and he continues to do that. He's not wedded to one formation. He'll switch it from a 4-3-3, 3-4-3, even a 4-2-3-1 when appropriate to do so. If we adopt a high defensive line against Nottingham Forest on Saturday. They've got players in the team who have got pace and who will hurt us. And this is something that Lopetegui has got to seriously consider when he sets his tactics up against Forest. You know, Lopetegui says you take one game at a time and you adapt your game accordingly. So let's see what he's going to do there. Now, if Gibb White and Wood are out of the Forest team, they've got no shortage of players. I've talked about how they can hit us on the break in order to gain advantage. Callum Hudson-Odoi is one of those players that will certainly pose a threat to West Ham on the wings. But it is Wood who is the key man for them. And if he's out, then that's a huge bonus for West Ham because Wood, as I've said, you know, he's got 7 goals. He's the highest goal scorer this season with all other players, quite a few other players, only on 1 goal. So they really do rely on Wood for their goals. So what about West Ham? Well, the last time we played Forest at the City Ground, it was back in February earlier this year, where we were beaten 2-0 with Aboyini and Hudson-Odoi, who scored the goals. We came out of that game and did a video, me, Wiggy, and a few others, and a rain-soaked Nottingham as we made our way back to the station. And we talked about, you know, how it was at that time when we started to lose games on a regular basis and how disappointing the performance was. Now, despite having beaten them in our home games, the last time we beat Forest at the City Ground was way back in August 2011 when we beat them 4-1 when we were both in the Championship. So it's a bit of a tall order, isn't it, to go and expect a win against Forest at their ground? In his press conference on Thursday, Lopetegui was non-committal as to who might be in his starting lineup, and rightly so. What gives the press the right to want to know who's going to start a game? Now, many people, myself included, expect Crescencio Summerville to get his second Premier League start of the season after his man of the match second half performance last Sunday against Man United. It was a superb performance. He demonstrated how crucial his pace is and what it adds to the team. He provided us with a similar fast-paced outlet that most other teams possess in the Premier League. But it's central midfield that it's going to be an interesting call. And I'll come to that in a moment in terms of who Lopetegui may select. Now, I'm also expecting Lopetegui to go with a back line that he started in the second half of the game against Man United. But with the 2 centre-backs, I'm expecting Alvarez to play in a kind of sweeper-type role that he did against Man U. Now, Todibo is likely to face another late fitness test. But I think he'll pass that and he'll be lining up alongside Max Kilman. Now, if you like Kilman, if you're a Kilman fan, for your chance to win a Kilman signed and framed West Ham shirt, as well as the chance to win 15 instant West Ham prizes, go to footballprizes.co.uk for all the details, plus terms and conditions. The competition ends at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, the 6th of November. And good luck with that. Now, the back 2, with Alvarez as a sweeper, will allow Emerson and Aaron Wan-Bissaka to be utilised as wing-backs. Now, many West Ham fans have been saying for most of the season that Wan-Bissaka is no good in a wing-back role. But he has demonstrated on several occasions this season that he's got the capability to play in this role pretty well. The only thing that's kind of missing from his game is being able to cross the ball. But he was immense last week in the game against his former club, Man United, and he caused them no ends of problems down that wing. In fact, he caused more problems in order to rub out any threat that they had down the wings, like Garnacho, etc. Now, with Nicholas Füllkrug unavailable, the front line is again likely to be led by Antonio, with Bowen and Crescencio Summerville on either wing. I do think Summerville will keep his place. And I guess alongside Alvarez, we'll see Rodriguez start again. And then midfield, central midfield, as I've mentioned. It's down to whether Lopetegui decides to retain Lucas Paqueta or take him out of the limelight. Paqueta has had yet another testing week off the pitch, with his uncle being called up by the Brazilian Parliamentary Inquiry Committee on Games and Sports Betting, which was on Wednesday. His uncle refused to answer any questions. And as for the player himself, his lawyers have managed to postpone him coming up against the same committee until December. But it's his frame of mind that I worry about. And I don't think Lopetegui is going to start him on Saturday. Now, I also don't think that Soler did enough to warrant a start, despite being deployed out of position on the left side against Man United last weekend. So I think it's going to be Thomas Soucek that gets the call up, gets the nod. He had a fairly decent game when he came on in the second half against United last week. As for keeper, I think that is going to stay with Lopetegui is going to stay with Lucas Fabianski. He's going to retain his place. But I do quite hope, I mean, that lob over Fabianski in the first half by Dalot was only finished off by a poor finish by Dalot. Otherwise, we would have been 1-0 down. And then people would have been asking, on the judgment of whether Fabianski is the goalie that should be starting games in the Premier League. My thoughts on this. I still think Areola should be our number one. So the team overall is going to look something like this: Fabianski in goal, Todibo and Kilman as our centre backs, Alvarez playing that kind of deep line, almost sweeper type midfield role, Wan-Bissaka and Emerson as our kind of wing backs, and then four in the middle of Bowen, Rodriguez, Soucek and Summerville, with Antonio up front. Now, it's difficult to describe what formation that is. You could call that a 3-5-1. You could call that a 3-4-3. That looks like it could be a 5-4-1. It's quite varied. But I think these are the players that are going to be starting at the weekend. Now, as for our tactics, Lopetegui must seriously consider playing a counter-attacking style of football against Forest on Saturday. Because if I mentioned earlier, if we go in on the front foot and play a high line, I think Forest could hurt us. But it is Forest who play the counter-attacking style of football. So West Ham might feel compelled to take the game to them. I hope Lopetegui is that tactically astute enough not to fall into Santo's trap. I'm going for a win on Saturday, but it'll be a game where I just don't feel we'll keep a clean sheet again, so I'm going for a 2-1 win. Quite ambitious, given that we haven't won there for over 13 years. If you've enjoyed the show, please do hit the like button. If you're passing through and not yet become a subscriber, please do become a subscriber of the channel and hit the like button regardless. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back on Saturday, obviously. I'm making my way to Nottingham tomorrow, and we'll do a video straight after the game. And if we score goals, etc., we'll put short videos up too. So look out for those, and I'll see you all soon.